to Rise and Grind Live. Unlock your full potential with the power of daily motivation, education, inspiration with your host, Glenn Lundy, a husband to one, father to 8, global motivational speaker, and the author of The Morning Five.
I'm Heather Parody, former therapist turned online entrepreneur and wannabe comedian.
Celebrity interviews, transformational information, and a massive community around the #1 morning show in the world. It's 5:30 a.m. and it's time to rise and grind. And gentlemen, super excited with us today. We have the great Dan Clark. Dan is a master motivator. He is a CEO, multiple companies, New York Times bestseller. He's a member of the National Speakers Hall of Fame. This guy speaks all over the world. He's literally spoken all over the world. I got an opportunity to meet him in Las Vegas, Nevada, I guess probably 2 years ago or so. Got an opportunity to meet him there. He made a massive impact on my life at the time. And now I am super excited to bring him right here on Rise and Grind. Dan, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Glenn. I was sharing with Heather off screen that you have the same level of impact on me, and I'm a songwriter, so I'd write a song about you, my friend, but I don't know what rhymes with stud muffin hunk of burning love. Let's get that out of there.
Let's get that out of the way. Right out the gate. See, can you see that? This is why we were so excited to have Dan on the show today. Things like that come out of his mouth all the time, and it's unforgettable.
I know this clip's going to end up on IG. You're going to be clipping that out and putting that up on the Instagram.
Well, you know, it's not every day you get called a stud muffin hunk of burning love. I mean, come on. That's a new one for me today. Dan, what are you doing with your life lately, man? What's the most new and exciting thing in your world right now?
You know what's so crazy is, I followed you. I love your philosophies. I love your energy. Congratulations on 10X speaker in the world. There's people on Mars who are fired up about you and by you. But one of the things that I extract from what I try to do when I listen to influencers and mentors like you and like Heather is I try to distill it into what I call the hook of a song. I'm a songwriter, and it's the hook that sells the song. My buddy Tim Nichols, he wrote Live Like You're Dying for Tim McGraw, and the song Garth Brooks, The Dance. I could have missed the pain, but then I had to miss the dance. So it's the hook. And I try to distill what the message is from around me and from influencers like you. And I think what's got my attention, not just a sense of urgency with which we live our lives, but the difference between a job and a calling. So I've been a professional speaker since 1982 when Zig Ziglar took me under his wing. He sponsored me in the National Speakers Association. And since then, I've spoken 6,000 audiences in 75 countries, millions of people. And I've never missed a speech, Glenn. I've never missed a speech, Heather. And I don't want you to think I'm such a noble man. I was paralyzed playing football. Hopefully we'll get into that story. I was paralyzed for 14 months. I went to 16 doctors, 15 of whom told me I would not recover. I would never get any better. And now that I've fought my way back to a 95% recovery, I know for a fact that I lost my identity. I thought I was a football player when in reality, that's just what I did, not who I am as a man. And I know for a fact that there's at least one man and one woman in every one of my audiences who is hurting as badly as I was. And that's why I've never missed a speech. I'll have flights canceled and I'll rent a car. I drove 7 hours one time from Nebraska through the Badlands of Nebraska to Rapid City, South Dakota to make a speech. And I was the only speaker who showed up in a 3-day conference for the entire state health care.
You were the only one that showed up?
Yeah, and the guy at the door, he's hugging me, and the lady's sobbing, and they like, thank you so much. And I'm like, everybody else used an excuse of inclement weather, they couldn't make it. But my calling is substantiated and validated by 2 questions that I ask every person who calls me and wants me to coach him in speaking. Number 1, What would you drive 5 hours one way to say to somebody for free? And if you would, it's not a calling. You're just seeking an adrenaline rush. You just think it's a job. Pay me my speaker's honorarium and I'm out of here. And the second question, which is the tip of the spear, is if you had 1 hour to live, what would you say to the world? What's your last lecture? What's your final examination? And when you amalgamate those two questions, the answers to those two questions, you can pretty quickly, identify and quantify what your calling is. And so my calling is to change the world one story at a time. I've written my 37 books. I don't know if I have any more inside of me, but everything I do with music, everything I do with writing books, everything I do with speaking is focused on just trying to help someone decide not to take their life, to save a marriage, to inspire someone to kickstart one more time their entrepreneurial idea, reminding them that there's no such thing as a financial crisis, only an idea crisis. Ideas create income. Go for it. So I'm sorry, I won't give you those long answers to any of your other questions, but I just wanted to lay the foundation maybe that what's important to me, what I'm involved with now is what I've been doing since I recovered from my paralysis. And that's just focusing in on every single day to make sure it's the best it can be, because I have regrets of only running when the coach was watching. I'm a huge football fan. I'm a huge Raider. I was a projected #1 draft pick by the Raiders back in 1979, 80. And they're still my team. That's why it was so cool to meet you and see that you're a Raiders fan in Vegas. That was one of our deeper connections that we'll talk about maybe. But to go to a football game and have my 50-yard line, 4th row seats, and at least once during the game, I get teary-eyed saying, I'd give anything to just run down on one more kickoff. I'd give anything to show up at the line of scrimmage one more time in a bad mood. And it was taken away from me before I was ready. And so my sense of urgency is, ironically and tragically based and grounded and sustained by regrets. Oh my gosh. And I will never, ever allow one day to go by without maximizing my performance and making sure every relationship is on the departs, ends that day where we each say, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. I couldn't wait to see you. I couldn't wait to hang out with you. I couldn't wait to learn from you. I couldn't wait to have you call me so that we could connect at this deeper level. And finally, after 2 years, you ran out of guests. And you called me. I am so flattered, dude. I am so honored.
Dan, you are, oh my gosh, something else, my man.
I got a question. I got lots of questions already for you, friends. You're a passionate guy, and I love it. And when I'm looking at, your body of work and hearing you talk, it's just like, it feels like you've just kind of let go of all restrictions. Like, you're a songwriter, you've traveled the world. I mean, look at your website, you see photos with like Michael Jordan and all these famous people. I mean, it's like you've lived so much life. And the advice that I've always been given, and I know there's an element of truth to it, is if you want to really scale something, you need to go in really deep with something and eliminate distractions. And that makes a lot of sense, but sometimes that rubs against this deep desire to live life to the fullest and experience everything and create something like you've created, this full life. How have you, as a high performer, been able to stay focused and become great at something while still accepting all that life has to give you?
That's such a great question, Heather. Thank you. I don't want to flatter myself, but people stop me all the time. Clark, you've written 37 books. I was the proudest accolade I've ever received is I was the Utah Father of the Year. I have 4 beautiful, amazing, successful, significant children, 1 son, 3 daughters. One of the greatest posts that you posted, Glenn, was when you had the daddy-daughter date, and that brought tears to my eyes that you were hanging out with your little girl. That told me something in a picture that paints 1,000 words, something so incredible about you and the why is bigger than the why not, that balances your life. So in that mindset, to answer your question, Heather, one of the things that I think is so critically important is that we stop trying to focus in on where we're going all the time. What the number one limiting belief that holds us back is focusing in on a future outcome, when really the only thing we can do is focus on the present process, stay present in the moment, and answer, where are you right now? And so every guru has their own version of a balance wheel. You know, I go all the way back to Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, who was one of my heroes, one of my friends. He called my dad in the hospital while he was battling cancer. You know, Zig Ziglar, even Tony Robbins, Brendan Burchard, probably Dave Meltzer. Everybody has their own version of the balance wheel, but most of them, with all due respect, only dissect life into 6 categories, 6 areas, and they name them nouns: physical, mental, spiritual, social, financial, and family. But nouns evoke no emotion. So in my experience in life, to answer your question, I've decided that there are 9 aspects of life, and everything we do or try to accomplish can be categorized and found in those 9 areas of life. And I labeled them action verbs. Number 1, not physical, but physical fitness, because you don't just go to the gym once.
I wish we could.
Yeah. Well, let's just talk about that. My routine in the morning, I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, no matter what. I could go to bed at 2 a.m., but it's more important to be disciplined than it is to be motivated, because you can't always be motivated. But I know me. So I had to build a nice gym with a cold plunge in my own home, especially in Utah.
Oh, no.
Because I guarantee that when my alarm clock goes off at 5 a.m., if my feet don't hit the floor, if I'm not in my gym by 5:05, I've already started to save my money up for liposuction and a tummy tuck. Like, exercise is way overrated. So I've got to do what I got to do. But think about it. If we just focus in on the 9 aspects of life and are willing to take action on them: physical fitness, continuous education, deeper spirituality. Glenn brings in the spirituality, as well as the family, as well as the finance, as well as the goal setting, as well as the, he emerged, he had warrants out for his arrest. He emerged as that phoenix out of the ashes. What an inspiration. But I think what we'll agree on is that religion is for those who are afraid to go to hell. Spirituality is for those of us who have already been there. Fourth area.
Come on.
Fourth area. Emotional stability, social networking, financial literacy, family togetherness, fun and recreation, and charitable giving. And we've all read the book by James Clear, Atomic Habits, and he's the one that illuminated the significance of improving ourselves 1% a day. That we can improve our overall performance if we just improve 1% a day. Well, in terms of time, let's talk about it. Today, you've never been this old before. And today, you'll never be this young again. So right now matters, and every right now matters, which means no matter what your past has been, you have a spotless future. So in terms of time, there are 1,440 minutes in every day, and 1% of that is 15 minutes. So what would happen in your life if you were willing to wake up 15 minutes earlier than you normally do and spend those 15 minutes in spiritual meditative thought, 15 minutes longer in the gym, 15 minutes more in the community as a lead generation, 15 minutes more engaged in charitable giving, 15 minutes more with your spouse, with your significant other, with your children, 15 minutes longer than you normally do, and realize what Dave Meltzer, our mutual friend and mentor, reminds us, that if you're willing to just put in 1% effort for 72 days in a row, you can actually become twice as good at something than you were in 72 days. So I'm a guitar player. If I improve myself 1% every day in guitar playing, just practicing my scales or doing a riff or trying to be Eddie Van Halen, in 72 days, I'm twice as good at playing the guitar as I was when I began. And if you can't allocate 1%, how about 0.5%? And Meltzer reminds us, just double it. So 72 goes to 144 days to become twice as good. You can learn to speak French. Bonjour, comment ça va? Je suis très content d'être ici. That's what I've done on my pre-core. We can become the very best version of ourselves 1% at a time. So back to the limiting belief that holds us back is focusing on the future. The only thing we can really answer is, where are you right now? It's like ordering an Uber ride that requires that you enter in your current location. And if you lie about where you are, the directions won't work. So as a songwriter focused in on hooks, I've got some gold records, as I said. May I just put out the image, the hook, a one-liner to definitively answer your question, Heather. I just went to my high school reunion. We've all been there. And after 60 minutes of sucking up and listening to all the Uncle Rico stories of, I remember when I threw that 40-yard touchdown pass back in 1862, back in the 15th century when I was a cheerleader for Ben-Hur. Everybody's living in the past. And I got so sick and tired of having all these guys drag me into the past, because there's a really good chance I wouldn't hang around with the guy I was in high school. I was just a cocky, arrogant, all-American athlete. And I finally had to put my foot down and say, stop it. You're all trying to rob my old house, and I don't live there anymore. Again, a one-liner hook that hopefully you can hang your hat on, that really identifies what my mission is, what my passion is, to wake up every day and answer, I can't always control what happens, but I can always control what happens next. What can I do right now? Put my phone down, be present in the moment, engage. And it's just such a simple, elementary answer, but it's just about, where are you and what are you and why are you right now?
Dan, I got a question for you. You've done a lot of things. You've been a lot of places. You've spoken over 6,000 times, which is amazing. You are so incredibly inspiring. And you have a lot of tools. You've made a lot of connections. You've had a lot of mentors, gained a lot of wisdom, written 37 books, which is incredible.
You notice I didn't say 37 good books, just 37 books.
Hey, you notice I didn't say 37 good books either. I just...
Yeah, baby, let's keep it real, baby.
You are just a heck of a guy, man. My question is, what is a, I want to make sure I word this right. What is a problem you have yet to be able to figure out how to solve, or a question you have yet to be able to answer through all of your experience, wisdom, things like that? Is there anything in you or anything that you've seen or experienced that you're like, man, I still haven't been able to quite figure this thing out yet?
Yeah, so I've had a top 5 hit, never had a number 1 hit. There's a formula, there's a piece of the algorithm that I haven't figured out yet. And I don't want to sell my soul to do it. There's so many songwriters who have figured out the algorithm to just get radio play.
Yeah.
But their songs are so vanilla, they never cause us to listen again, to hear the message, to feel it deeply in our soul. And so, that's a great question, Glenn, because I think the three of us share that same constant dilemma of, how do we achieve greatness? How do we become better today than we were yesterday, without selling our soul with the temptation to be popular for the moment instead of respected for a lifetime? So 2 things come to mind. We've talked about music. Let me just inspire everybody. What keeps us motivated as singers and songwriters? I've recorded a lot of music. I was a recording artist. What keeps us motivated as songwriters and recording artists is the goal to have a platinum selling song, which means you sell 1 million copies. And what motivates us, what keeps us focused, and so that we refuse to sell our soul, is the reality that there are 300 million people in America. You can literally piss off 299 million and still go platinum. There are so many millions of people who don't like country music, who despise Tim McGraw, and he gets over it really fast. I am the biggest Michael Jackson fan, one of the greatest singers, songwriters, entertainers, saw him live. But there are millions of people who despise Michael Jackson, and he got over it really fast. We've got to be true to ourselves and stop selling out.
That's good.
So what we need to do is surround ourselves with individuals that can teach us what we need to know. So in answer to your question, Glenn, I really don't believe there's a question that I can't find the answer to, but I could make a laundry list of many questions that I have not yet found the answer to, but I refuse to give up because there's no such thing as a coincidence.
That's right.
I mean, I was just in Little Rock. I am a fan of Scottie Pippen at University of Central Arkansas. I send out gifts from Toadsuck Ferry celebrating Toadsuck Days. I've played Augusta National. I've been to the Masters multiple times. I'm dear friends with the biggest funeral home, the Posies in Augusta. Tom Blanchard's one of my dearest friends. He just passed away. He was the #1 realtor in Augusta. That's where Heather Parody's from.
Right.
And I meet you in Vegas, and it gives me a reason to follow you, your journey. You're participating, you competing in Cardone's, I know Pete Vargas from way back in the days. I know the whole process that you went through. And now we're on this show together. So it validates that, what Jim Rohn said is that we become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most. And I add to that, which means we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with extraordinary human beings. In order for us to attract an extraordinary human being, we must first be one. We know all that. Law of attraction, we don't attract who we want, we attract who we are. We already know that. But what I've decided to do is identify the 5 people that we need on our team to associate with. And we need 2 people who are smarter than us, who have more experience, more wisdom. They've done exactly what we want to do so they can accelerate our journey and turn decades into days. The third person we need in our lives, becoming the average of the 5 people we associate with the most, is a spiritual guide. Someone who keeps us in line so that integrity matters, service before self, commitment to excellence in all we do, so that we are aware and actively living the Boy Scout oath, the Boy Scout law, that we really are in fact trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent every moment of our lives. It's so critically important, Glenn, Heather, that we become who we say we are, that we're the same off stage as we are on stage. So let me just give you an example here. If you and I were roommates in college and we collectively decided to wake up every morning at 5 a.m. and go to the gym and push each other to our ultimate capacity and potential as a human being, remember the mindset is to create discomfort on purpose in the gym, put a little bit more weight on the bar than we did today. Spend 1 more minute on the pre-core on the elliptical than we did. And then it blows my mind how people leave the gym and they want princess parking in every mall and a sale in every store and a 90-degree beautiful day with a wind blowing from the canyon over our shoulder. That ain't reality. So how do we go into the gym? I want to be better. I need to push myself. And then we leave going, I can't handle it. I'm stressed. I have anxiety. It's not fair. I don't win all the time. I want a participation trophy, which is the stupidest and most evil thing I've ever heard in my life. Don't get me started. But what happens when we focus in on what it is that we really want to accomplish? We need someone in our life who will inspire us to be all that we were born to be, the best version of ourselves. So let's say we're roommates and we wake up every morning, we challenge each other every morning, and we hold each other accountable. We wake up every morning at 5 a.m., go to the gym, push ourselves beyond belief. Then we go into the library and we push ourselves and study to prepare for the exams of the day. Well, that's only creating accountability partners, and that's not enough. That's not who you are, and that's not who I am. That's who we're trying to be. But Glenn, if you wake up every morning at 5 a.m., regardless if I do or not, and you go to the gym and push yourself, and then you go to the library and push yourself, regardless if I'm with you or not, that's who Glenn Lundy really is. As we say in country music, no matter where you go, there you are. You can surgically remove the stripes from a tiger, and it is still a tiger. So one of the best stories I've told for years, I'm walking in the mall with one of my buddies. Somebody bumps into him. He spills his cup of coffee. I said, what happened? He said, I spilled my cup of coffee. I said, no, you didn't. He goes, what? I said, you didn't spill your cup of coffee. You spilled what was in your cup. Had you had tea in your cup, you would have spilled tea. Had you had orange juice or water in your cup, you would have spilled orange juice or water. We can only spill what's in our cup. So if you're negative and the economy bumps into you, COVID bumps into you, a personal relationship goes south, somebody screws you in business, and you're negative, what spills out is anger and resentment, which hurts us more than them. Because if you remain angry and hold a grudge, it's like you're drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Forgiveness is about us. Forgiveness is for us. Regardless of that person, we believe that person deserves to be forgiven or not. We need to rise to the occasion and be better than we've ever been before. But if you're positive and the economy bumps into you, COVID hits, a personal relationship goes south, you've been betrayed, a business deal is not good or doesn't turn out like you hoped it would, like you prepared for it. If you're positive, what spills out is tolerance, forgiveness, acceptance. How are we going to heal America? It's so critically important that we change our perspective. Let me ask you, is your glass half empty, Glenn, or is it half full? Or is it refillable, Heather? It's perspective.
It's refillable.
If all of us
right.
were in the same room looking at the same lashing rainstorm, and one of us complained what a horrible day and someone else exclaimed what a wonderful day, the weather did not change. It's perspective. My best analogy of all. Let's say this side of my hand is painted white, this side is painted blue. What color is my hand? White, blue. Who is right? We all are, depending on our perspective. So in order for us to communicate at the deepest, most authentic levels of empathy and total understanding, we got to come around on the other side of the hand. We've got to come around on the other side and see the other person's perspective and acknowledge that, yes, it is white. Yes, it is blue, which turns every single argument about who is right into agreeing on what is right so we can move forward together. Solution to healing America. Solution to communication in our most significant relationships. The secret to love and life and anything else we want to do.
Amen.
So who are the other two?
The fourth one is someone that someone who will challenge you. Someone who says, Glenn, great job, but you got one more rep. You know, the coach that says you've run 10 100-yard wind sprints. Now we're in the fourth quarter. Who wants to run one more? Not because it's expected by others, but because it's demanded of yourself. Someone who will challenge us in all 9 areas of life.
Got it.
You know, Glenn, you're metaphorically or hypothetically, let's just say, well, both of you, you know, you obviously take really good care of yourself. You make it so difficult to people like Glenn and I, Heather. If we want to compliment you, say, wow, you look beautiful. And you look at us like, well, that's the idea, you freaking bonehead. You know, it's like, wow, you look nice today. Wow, you're extraordinary today. And you kind of look at us like, well, what about yesterday? So paying these authentic compliments is a tough assignment when you're trying to communicate at that highest level. But we need someone to say, Glenn, you know, you're in great shape. And I love your new book coming out, Legacy. I love what you talk about on stage. I love everything you talk about in your early morning show and everything you talk about either in your podcast. But you need to blah, blah, blah. You say you're spiritual, but how many times have you walked past a homeless guy and it's not about him, it's about you. It's about eliminating the judgment. You're just going to buy more drugs. You're just going to buy more alcohol. You're mentally ill. Go get a job like I did. And forgetting about letting go of that judgment and giving him $1 or $5 because of what it does to us. It changes who we are. Service before self when we're never going to get the credit. Just challenge someone in our lives that challenges us. I remember when I thought it was a great speech. And my wife, we've been married for 43 years. And everybody goes, what's your secret? I've only been home 6 weeks total. It's going perfect. I went over 10 million miles on both. But she's my biggest fan and my greatest critic. Incidentally, she has been religiously cold plunging. She's now over 400 days in a row. So we have a conversation every once in a while because I haven't been that religious. I did it this morning. I did it the day before. I've done it for a while regularly. So I can confidently and honestly and authentically look into the green dot on my screen and say, yes, this is my righteous routine in the morning. I am committed to that. But our conversation was, it doesn't really matter how many 400 times she's plunged. What is she going to do today? What are you going to do right now? And so she challenges me every day, and I challenge her right now, right now. So if you knew my wife, my greatest fan and my greatest critic, I gave a speech. I thought I nailed it. And we're leaving, we're driving in the car, and I'm kind of full of myself. And I said, what'd you think? She said, you sucked. And I said, what? She said, you made everybody feel guilty. You left them feeling guilty. And I've studied the brain science and all the brain chemicals. Adrenaline is fired up. It's the urgency drug. Endorphins, the motivation drug. Endorphins, the action drug. Dopamine's the motivation drug. Serotonin is the recognition drug. Oxytocin is the love drug. And cortisol is the brutal drug that never leaves your body because it's created through guilt. It's created through this negative emotion, like you're not enough. So she wailed on me and challenged me to come up with a better conclusion, challenged me to come up with solutions that if I'm gonna show up and point out the pile of crap, I better show up with a shovel. I better show up with a truck to take it away. I better have some solutions before I start complaining. So that fourth person, Glenn, is someone that challenges us in all 9 areas of our life. Because let's just say, Glenn, you out of 1 to 15 on my balance, we'll have 1 to 15. Let's just say, you're a 13 in physical fitness, and you're a 13 in continuous education. You're 13 in deeper spirituality. You're 13 in emotional stability, and you're a 7 in social networking. You need somebody in your life to say, Glenn, you are doing great, but what about this? So there's an interesting statistic. Here's the question to all of your listeners. Would you spend more of your time working on your weaknesses, working what you're average at, or working on your strengths? And some people would easily answer, 33, equal amount of time. So some people would say, well, I'm going to spend all my time working on my weaknesses. So when I've coached football, I played football for 13 years. I coached high school football for 6.5 years. We won the state championship. So we have tendencies as offensive linemen. We can block better with our dominant shoulder, right shoulder, or we have a tendency to be able to pull, pushing off our left foot without crossing our legs, all these fundamentals. But if your strength is going to the right, you'd become a better offensive lineman if you could also go to the left. So I challenge them to do crazy things like if you're right-handed, brush your teeth with your left hand, eat your food with your left hand. If you're a receiver, take piano lessons. It strengthens your fingers so you can catch the ball. All these different things, kind of like, Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. There's ways to develop the strength and flexibility, mindset, heart set that we need outside of what we do by CrossFit training, cross-mind training. But Some people would say, I'm just going to hang in there and just be average. And then some people say, I'm only going to focus on my strengths. So I would ask everyone on this podcast, what would you do? And be honest with yourself, and then I'll give you the statistics. 95 to 100% of the highest achievers, the Pro Bowl football players, the Kobe Bryants, Michael Jordans, LeBron James, D. Wade, the Wayne Gretzky's, the Bo Jacksons. You could list anybody from my generation and your own current generation, the superstars, and 95 to 100% of them only work on their strengths. Mm-hmm. Well, that fourth person is the challenge person. You got to challenge me. I got to be better, because it's not enough to be Pro Bowl. You need to be world class. Think about Ohtani. He just signed a $700 million contract to play for the Dodgers. Why? He's been the MVP twice, but he's a pitcher with a low earned run average, and he hits home runs more than anyone in the league. Talk about world class. And you got Michael Trout, and you got my buddy Bryce Harper. You got all these guys who are also at the top of their game, but Ohtani all of a sudden steps up because someone in his life is challenging him daily to work on his strengths. How can you perfect that pitch that's so good? Mariano Rivera, the greatest closer of all time for the New York Yankees, first ballot Hall of Famer. He only had one pitch. One pitch. And he was the greatest closer of all time because every day he focused on working on his strengths. And the fifth person, Glenn, is someone you can serve, someone who can mentor you, who will willingly take you from where you are to where you want to be. Not inviting them to come to where we are, but for us to go where they are. The only place from which a person can grow is where he or she is. We have to go over there physically and emotionally and spiritually. Only there can we generate trust, the transference of trust, definition of sales, leadership, coaching, and gently invite them to improve. So Zig was my mentor, and he sponsored me in the National Speakers Association. Well, he heard me speak. Next week, he flew me down to Dallas to speak to his company. Next week, he sponsors me in the National Speakers Association. So he invites me to meet him in Chicago. So I'm his protege. So I'm at the table with Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, Charlie Tremendous Jones, Robert Schuller, Ty Boyd, all the greatest speakers of our generation. And I'm suddenly one of the boys because I'm Zig's guy. Next week, he invites my wife and I to his Born to Win seminar, our first seminar experience, 5 days in Dallas. And there he introduced me to somebody who introduced me to Nancy Reagan, who invited me into the Reagan White House to take Mrs. Reagan's Just Say No program to all 50 states. So between 1983 and 1989, I spoke in three high schools a day, 15 a week for 140 school days a year, 100 college university campuses a year, and about that same number of teacher and services to millions of teenagers. And then I transitioned into the corporate arena in 1991-92. So I started speaking to the corporate gig, had the privilege of speaking to most of the Fortune 500, NASA, CIA, world, United Nations, and to our combat troops in Iraq, Afghanistan. I've been down range 8 times firing up our troops, all because I had a mentor who had worked so hard to position himself with wisdom, with experience, with time to serve, with a focus on helping someone, who took the time to take me under his wing. And Dave Meltzer's done that for you, Glenn. And in this call, Heather, you're doing it for me. I appreciate you. I love you. I honor you. Glenn inviting me on this program to affiliate with you. You're my mentor. You have been vicariously listening, tuning in, watching your growth. But this is what it's all about. At the end of the day, working as hard as we can to make as much money as we can, so we have that discretionary income, that time, that ability to serve others, to reach out, to help. And we can't do it for everyone, but we can do it for at least one person. And those are the 5 people I think we need to associate with on a daily basis. And those 5 can change.
Sure.
I need somebody to inspire me to work harder in the gym. That's the fourth person. That's the challenger. So I might need somebody to challenge me to be more spiritual, to be more empathetic. And we can't just have someone challenge us. There's a difference between challenge and skill. We need somebody who can, one of the first two people, help develop our skills, our hard skills, coding on a computer, learning to catch a football better, perfecting my virtuoso piano playing, skill development. But we also need somebody to challenge us and mentor us in our soft skills: empathy, compassion, communication, understanding, unconditional love, non-judgmental friendship, forgiveness. I cover all those in my book, The Art of Significance, Achieving the Level Beyond Success, and get a lot of comments on that.
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
powerful.
Parody.
Powerful.
What do you think about all this?
I think it's time to take Dan to the mountaintop. I don't know about you, but I'm really excited to hear what he would say here.
I say take him. Let's go, Heather Parody. Take him to the
All
mountain.
right, listen. This is a big deal, Dan. Like, this only happens one time in your life where you go up to a really tall mountain, like the biggest in the world, okay? The biggest. You're standing on top of it, and the entire world is wrapped around this mountain, and they're cheering your name. It's like, Dan, you rock. We love you. They're chanting, and somebody hands you a microphone. And you only have 2 minutes to tell the entire world one thing. What would it be?
I would refer to a conversation I had with a football teammate who was drafted into the National Football League in the second round by the Philadelphia Eagles. After 2 years with the Eagles, he's traded to my Oakland Raiders. And after 4 years playing with the Raiders at the highest Pro Bowl status, one day he walks out of practice, quits, never to play again. Why? He loved being a football player, but he hated playing football. He loved the celebrity perks that allowed him to and the fame and fortune that allowed him to live this life we call successful: nice car, nice house, nice income, nice title, nice rep. But that's achieved by competing against others, focusing in on what matters at the moment. But because his inner voice and purpose in life was misaligned with who he was and what he had to do to achieve success, he would never achieve a life of significance. And he would die with his intentions and with regrets and with his music still in him. So successful people get what they think they want, focused on what matters at the moment. But those of us who are striving to live lives of significance actually want what we get by focusing in on what matters most, which is what lasts the longest, so we don't die with our music still in us. So a few years ago, on October 23rd, I had the rare opportunity to soar to the edge of space in a U-2 reconnaissance aircraft, where for 5 hours I sat in the sounds of silence, looking at the breathtaking curvature of the earth, gazing into the endless blackness of the universe, pondering eternity and my place in it. And I became an eyewitness. I teared up as an eyewitness to the words of Einstein, who said, although the concept of a master organizer and supreme being is complex, we must embrace the mindset of a young child who walks into a large library and says, surely someone must have written all these books. And in moments I became an eyewitness. I also agreed that we are more than mere mortal beings living on a small planet for a short season. So when we landed, here's the answer to your question. What occurred to me when we landed after this 5-hour sortie was that everything we can take with us when we die, I had aboard with me on that aircraft. My education, we don't learn to know, we learn to do. Knowledge is power, but it has no heart. All the information in the world isn't going to make a person successful. It's like the guy who has 3 PhDs, one in philosophy, one in psychology, one in sociology, doesn't have a job, but at least he can explain why. Moral of the story. Reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. The second thing we can take of this when we die is our character. Who are you? And why do you do what you do? Your why has to be bigger than your why not. Third thing we can take with us when we die is our conviction. How deeply do you believe what you believe? When I was paralyzed and I recovered, I went to 16 doctors, 15 of whom told me I would not recover. I would never get any better. And now that I've recovered, the question is, why did I go to so many different doctors? I kept going from doctor to doctor until I found one who believed I would get better. Second question, Clark, what do you mean you thought you hit rock bottom when you were paralyzed? My life spiraled out of control and I hit what I thought was rock bottom. Now what I've realized based on belief, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how bad it is, no one ever hits rock bottom. We hit rock foundation. We hit rock belief. We hit the baseline core values and governing principles on which we were raised. And the third question, Clark, what took you so long to recover? Why were you paralyzed for 14 months? Answer, I was asking the wrong questions. I was asking the doctors how to get better when I should have been asking myself why. And once we answer why, figuring out the how to becomes clear and simple. And when we only focus on the what and the how, we only engage the head, the brain. But when we add to that a passionate why and a compelling want, a meaningful goal, we connect the head with the heart. And physiologically proven, our blood pumps more rapidly, our brains fire, and our muscles magnify, which maximizes our performance. And the last thing we can take with us when we die, our memory. Did our lives matter? Did we make a difference? Did everybody in our life come and leave us saying, I like me best when I'm with you, I want to see you again? And because we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with extraordinary human beings, even online, my answer is hang out with Heather Parody, hang out with Glenn Lundy, hang out with Dave Meltzer, follow my old mentor, Zig Ziglar. Maybe, who knows, you'll find it in your repertoire to seek me, look me up on Instagram or something to see if I can inspire you in some way to just get back up and go again, because you really, really can. It's an honor to be on this show. I love you. I really do. I honor you and I admire you more than you'll ever know.
Man,
thank you.
I really, really, really appreciate you. I appreciate that and the sentiments. Mountaintop moments. Dan, you are amazing, sir. To our audience here on Rise and Grind, make sure you blow this guy up today. Pour into him with all of the encouraging messages. Read through. A lot of those books are really good books. I was teasing earlier. Read through his books. Connect with him on all the socials. And hopefully, maybe, just maybe, you might get an opportunity to see this guy on stage, live and in person, as he continues to make an impact around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, that is today's episode of #Rise and Grind. We'll be back on Monday morning, 5:30 a.m. We'll do it all over again. Take care.